This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio. We are on WTQT 106.1 FM. We're also on TV, digital TV, Channel 31 in Shreveport, Channel 45 in Alexandria, Channel 45 in Monroe, and Channel 97.5 KTJZ Tallulah. Now, if you want to call in, you're welcome to 225-343-1075. And I'm going to take a little sway away from labor news this morning. This is a story in the Advocate this morning. 60-year-old hero dies in North 28th Street fire. And the story is by Ben Wallace at the Advocate. Several friends of mine are very familiar with this man. There's in my life there's very few opportunities to come in contact with a true hero. You got all these politicos that'll beat their chests and hero to the working people, and I take it with a grain of salt. Want to welcome in Julie Cherry from the AFL-CIO. Good morning, Julie. Let me get your mic on. I don't know. We'll cut them all on.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be here.
Okay, we got something going here. Go ahead, Julie.
Good morning, Mike.
Okay.
You found me yet?
I don't know. Okay, 6 is off. Okay, go ahead, Julie.
We're still getting used to a new board, huh?
Well, I'll never get used to it. Go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, Mike. I think you might have been about to mention a story that I saw in the paper this morning. No?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh.
Okay, let's see if we're coming in. Give it to me again, Julie.
All right. Good morning,
That's
Mike.
Good. That's
we
good.
Finally got it?
Yeah. Like I said, there's very few opportunities I get to really come close to a local true hero. And this man, there's no other words you can describe him. He's very close to some dear friends of mine in the neighborhood, and he's 60-year-old. The story by Ben Wallace at the Advocate, and I'm going to go through the whole story. You'll just have to put up with it, Julie. 60-year-old hero dies in North 28th Street fire. Stanford Wilson, recognized for his bravery, and his bravery was he was a Walmart customer who was shot on May 22nd, 2004, while trying to help Vicky Wax. And he got gunshot wounds from that.
I remember well.
Stanford Wilson, recognized for his bravery nearly a decade ago in an attempt to save Baton Rouge police officer who was fatally shot at a Walmart, died Friday morning after running into a roaring house fire in an attempt to rescue some friends he believed were trapped inside the flaming home. Baton Rouge firefighters arrived at the home in the 700 block of North 28th Street, which is very close to here, at 1:47 a.m. Friday to find the house completely engulfed in flames, said Kurt Monte, Baton Rouge Fire Department spokesman. Did I pronounce his name right, Julie?
I usually say Kurt Monte, and I've known Kurt for some years.
Yeah.
So
firefighters on the scene soon figured out that at least 2 people had made it out of the burning house, but another man, later identified as Wilson, was probably inside the blazing 2-story house, Monty said. The fire was so intense that the second story of the home collapsed shortly after the arrival of the firefighters, temporarily hindering a possible rescue attempt of Wilson, Monty said. Once the roof collapse started to occur, we had to pull our firefighters out for safety. Sometime later, before the fire was under control, firefighters found Wilson's body in the back room of the house. The cause of the deadly blaze remains under investigation Friday evening, Monty said. Lena Baker, Wilson's neighbor, heard a series of loud pops coming from the next door early Friday morning. I thought it was bullets, Baker said, but it was the window glasses popping out. And when I opened the door, all I could see was a blazing fire. It was raging. Firefighters directed Baker to immediately exit her house because it was too close to the fire, she said. Baker, a retired school teacher who lived next door to the home for about 50 years, then grabbed a purse and some things, leaving behind all her other possessions. When the coroner drove up, we knew it had to be Sanford, Baker said, who commended firefighters' efforts early Friday morning. They gave it their all, she said, and they saved my house. The white wood paneling along the side of Baker's home had been burned to shades of gray and black on some of the areas of the outer walls. The roof had some damage, and the kitchen blinds had melted, she said. When the house separated from the burning down structure by a chain-link fence and a few feet of grass remained largely unscathed in the blaze. The fire, oh, it was horrible, Baker said. If firefighters had not worked the way they did, I would not have a house today. The persistent flames took hours to control, but it did not spread to any neighboring houses, fire officials said. Frederick Milliken, Wilson's cousin, drove to the North 28th Street location Friday afternoon to survey the damage. He said Wilson woke up everyone staying in the house to get them out during the fire. Several of Wilson's friends, who Milliken said were probably homeless, had been staying with Wilson recently, a testament to the man's kind, caring temperament. Stan would do anything to help somebody out, Milliken said. And you know what, Julie? All his other friends that I know said the same thing.
Yeah, I was struck by that line in the article, Mike, that this guy not only was a hero 10 years ago, apparently he just lived his life as somebody who always helped other people. Just, I mean, that's a testament right there.
Yep. In the summer of 2004, Wilson was recognized by city officials after suffering several gunshot wounds in an attempt to save Lieutenant Vicky Wax, who was fatally shot May 22nd of that year while trying to detain a shoplifting suspect at the old Walmart on Perkins Road. The suspect, later identified as Sheridan Williams, knocked Wax to the ground, grabbed her gun, and shot her. Wilson and a store security guard during a confrontation. I tried my best to get over to the action, Wilson said after the shooting. By the time I got over, it was too quick, but I heard her cry out for help, and when I heard that, I just couldn't ignore the situation. Wilson said he believed if he had reacted a few seconds earlier, Wax, a 27-year police veteran, might still be alive. On Friday, neighbors said those same instincts kicked in, which this time around cost Wilson, 60 years of age, his life. Wilson apparently helped several people escape Friday morning, but then brazenly re-entered the burning home to find at least two other people staying at home, Milliken said. Firefighters found him on his knees at the back door, Milliken said, surveying the remains of the house where he grew up spending Sunday afternoons and long summer days with his family. Two of Milliken's uncles, both carpenters, built the house decades ago, filling it with handmade furniture and a tribute that Milliken said probably contributed to the fire's ferocity. Once that old wood gets going, It's not going to stop immediately, Milliken said. It's going to burn. A shed Milliken's uncle once used as a workshop stood untouched by the fire behind the pile of rubble. Bulldozers had already been to the location around 7 a.m. Friday and pushed together books, tables, a shoe, a water bottle, a torn blue T-shirt, among other belongings, creating a roughly 15-foot tall mass of charred building materials. You might not have a physical building anymore, but you still have memories inside, Milliken said. Jimmy Wilson, Wilson's neighbor, said when his dog woke him up early Friday, the house was already in flames. That fire didn't want to go out, Williams said. Friday afternoon, Williams climbed into the pile of rubble, searching for anything of value and wishing that his friend hadn't gone into the burning home. After 40 years, you can't sum it up in one word. Williams said his relationship with Wilson, if only he wouldn't have went back in there. And
a sad story.
Sad story, and you don't find too many heroes like that walking around.
No.
That I know of.
You know, our firefighters do that kind of work every day, Mike, and we take it for granted, and then we read this story and we realize just how exceptional a person this is, without a thought for himself or his own life, really working to get out some people who had less than he had and take care of other people. So a real Baton Rouge hero that we remember this morning.
Well, his friends that spoke of him, and they're my friends that knew this man, they call him Stan. Okay? And they said he really didn't care, that the man would help anybody, whether they had a drug problem, an alcohol problem. If he had a place for them to lay down, they could come to his house. And
you have to have a special kind of trust to do
very
that.
Special.
A special heart for people.
Very special. And if anybody wants to call in that knew Stanford Wilson, 225-343-1075. An exceptional man. May rest in peace. May his family have peace. It's just, you don't know what else to say, And,
it sounds like that neighborhood has lost someone that's been a real pillar to the neighborhood. In that house, 40-something years, apparently from the story. And, with long-time relatives, just trying to live his life every day the best he can with a thought for those around him. If we had more Stans in the world, boy, would we be in better shape.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Well, Julie, you're here early. Julie Cherry with the AFL-CIO, Louisiana AFL-CIO, and you're the treasurer, right?
That is correct.
You're the treasurer, and she always comes in, and this morning we're thinking of also Ernest Stevens, who's healing up, convalescing, and hopefully he'll be back with us soon.
Ernest is kind of the I do everything else person.
Oh, yeah.
He's our Stan. He's the one who's out there and is often the face for us, and we do keep him in our prayers.
And another person that'll help anybody any way he can.
Will he ever.
And we're also talking about the East Baton Rouge Parish deputy that was killed in a two-car crash Friday night. Excuse me.
A young gentleman, only 24 years old, apparently with a real heart for law enforcement and for his community, inexplicably killed in a crash that's under investigation by the state police, was off duty, and we hold all our law enforcement officers close as they work to help our community be a vibrant and strong community where we all can have the courage to stand up for our neighbors.
And the unidentified woman with serious injuries that was involved in the crash, and like you said, it's still under investigation.
And accidents happen sometimes for no good reason at all. So, we keep our state police in our thoughts as they investigate this crash, and this young officer's family and this woman's family as we seek answers to this accident.
Now, getting back to the business that we handle here on TQT 106.1 LPFM at this 2-hour show that usually the first hour we play music, but we had all this other stuff going on. And if you want to call in, it's 225-343-1075, and we welcome your call. I was trying to get a hold of Ed Parker this morning to comment. He is the organizer in the area. Do you know his title, Julie? I got it right here.
Ooh, I'd have to look at his card to tell you his title. Right. It's hard to describe what some of these folks do because they are really all over the place. But Ed does work for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 17, which is the Louisiana state organization that represents these employees. And Ed has been busy. He has been very busy. He's
organized a lot of people. I know that. Well, anyway, I'm sure you're familiar with this story, Julie. And I'll go through it. It's a short story. It's by Marcia Schuler with The Advocate. State retirement system is doing well. Now, I have questions about this. And it says, good investment returns and a gentle administration fuel reduction in state employee workforce combined to reduce the Louisiana state retirement system's liabilities by nearly $700 million in the state fiscal year that ended June the 30th. Lasers Actuary, and that stands for Louisiana State Employees Retirement System. Lasers Actuary Shelley Johnson, do you know her, Julie?
No, I don't know Shelley.
Shared the news with the systems board on Friday. Lasers unfunded accrued liability, called the UAL, dropped from $7.13 billion to $6.43 billion. Sounds like it's still got a problem. Johnson said, the UAL is how much the pension fund needs to pay off all proposed benefits to active members and retirees. With the improvement, the pension system is now 62% funded, she said. Johnson said the system also reduced its liabilities. We are finally at a point where the payments on old debt exceeded the interest, said Johnson. We're at a point where we expect the balance to start decreasing every year based on the current UAL schedule. The UAL schedule is largely a result of prior administration's failure to provide significant funds to support the benefits being granted. Accruing interest on the UAL also pumped it up. Lasers' return on investments last year totaled 14.5%, which is 6% higher than the assumed projections, Johnson said. On top of that, Lasers' active members dropped by more than 8,000 during the last fiscal year, from 52,352 to 44,111. This is really good news. If there can be any good news out there about the layoffs. Contributing to the $700 million decrease in the UAL, she said, there are fewer active members accruing benefits, lower costs, she said. In addition, Johnson said a significant number of members who were not eligible for retirement took their contributions out of the system when they lost their state jobs. What was left was the interest earnings, which accrued to the benefits system. This report is excellent news, said Laser's executive director, Cindy Rougeau.
That's correct.
That's correct?
That's how you say
Whoa.
it. You got it right on the first shot.
I don't know how I've done that. The value of our plan is up. The debt is substantially reduced, and the state of Louisiana will save nearly $26 million in payments next year for active employees. State contributions are based on a percentage of payroll. With payroll going down, the financial contribution required decreases. Retirement state employees of Louisiana Executive Director Frank Jobert asked Johnson whether the number of people leaving the Lasers due to the employee layoffs and other reasons hurt the system's finances because less money is coming in employee contributions. Good question. If the system was not actuarially funded and relied on contributions coming in to make retirement payments, that would be a concern, Johnson said. The only reason the system is not 100% funded is because the system has not always accurately funded. But we do have a payment plan in place that's bringing in money into the system. It would have to be the layoffs.
Well, this article, first let me say...
Go ahead. You know more about it than me.
The person who knows more about the retirement systems than I do, one would be Ed and the other would be Lewis. It is interesting...
Maybe we could get Lewis to call in, or Ed Parker.
It's real interesting. They brought out a couple of things that make it clear, if you're paying attention, that the UAL, the unfunded accrued liability, isn't the only measure of a system's health. And that there are some things that go into that UAL number that, in my opinion, and I believe it's safe to say in Lewis's opinion, artificially inflate that number to make it look worse than it is, because there are folks who will use everything they can to reduce state government employment. You know, there is a system out there that wants to starve government, if you will. And if we lose that many employees and we lose quality of services on the back of it, once again we're saving on the backs of workers.
Right. And they're saying, well, they're saying that you can get the same quality of service with outsourcing this work to private contractors, is their argument on that.
That would be one of the arguments, and it is correct to say they say, because in a lot of ways we haven't seen any accountability measures.
And they also say that the companies that hire these people, they're paying benefits. They're getting sick pay. They're getting retirement. They're getting a 401k.
I think that would be a little bit more difficult to prove. Most of them are probably now going to have to provide some kind of health insurance. But beyond Social Security, they don't have to provide for a pension benefit.
No, they don't. They don't. And they're not going to get a defined pension plan. That the odds are
almost
greatly against that.
Right.
So, Julie, what are you bringing to the table this morning? I know you're bringing something that you want to talk about.
You know, I think we're expecting a caller this morning about one of our tax renewals coming up. And so I went online this morning and looked to see what do we have on the ballot, and maybe we could talk about some of those services and how they're funded for all citizens of this area.
Well, go ahead and give us a preview of that.
Well, they're in the Baton Rouge Voters Guide. This is from, believe it or not, from NOLA.com. There are tax measures in the October the 19th elections, and it describes each one, whether it's renewal or something new, where it comes from, about what it will cost, and so forth. So among those is, in this parish, the Brownsfield Fire Protection District has 2 propositions.
Those are both renewals, and it provides fire protection in the Brownsfield area. Each is for 10 mills after exemptions. One would be in effect from 2014 to 2023, while the other would be from 2015 to 2024. On a house valued at $250,000, each 10 mil tax would cost $175 per year after the exemption. So I need to get a little bit closer, I think. So these taxes will raise approximately $420,800 for the district, and they'll and operation and maintenance of the fire facilities. What you should know is that the fire officials have said the tax is essential to the fire district, and it could return to being a volunteer district if it does not pass. In Louisiana, we have some volunteer firefighter districts, and we have some professional firefighters. Brownsfield is a professional district, and that is paid for by a tax, by these taxes. So a lot of our people don't know about that.
Now, these are existing taxes.
They are renewals only. So if you think that you deserve
is, how do you know, and maybe I'm just throwing out a question that's not fair to you, but there is a savings to the homeowner by having a higher grade fire department.
And that comes in their all-peril insurance premium.
Which would flow down to someone renting a house or renting an apartment or something.
Good to bring that up, because a lot of people think, well, if I'm renting, I don't pay the tax. It doesn't matter whether I vote for it or not. They do pay for it. The landowner must figure that into his cost of doing business. And so it does, it probably reflects in your rent, although you won't see it listed that way. But it's a savings to that landowner because he's got the bigger insurance premium if there is no professional fire protection. Central has a fire protection district on the ballot. We have an EMS on the ballot here in Baton Rouge. We have the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office Law Enforcement District, South Burbank Crime Prevention District, and then there in Livingston there's Fire Protection District 4 and a mosquito abatement district. They've been fighting with that out in Livingston, whether they're going to actually tax themselves for mosquito abatement or not.
Oh, no, we wouldn't want to do that.
No, we think having West Nile virus is a fine thing. So.
What is that? Well, they got all them dogs over there.
Oh, the heartworms.
Well, I'm saying they got all them dogs over there in the
animal shelter.
Shelter, and there's no sustaining funds, and
and if you consider
what could be better than to have a bunch of stray dogs running down in there? Maybe in a third world country, I don't know, that's a benefit. But
well, in some places it's probably okay to just go out and shoot the beast, but that's probably a different debate. So these taxes really do fund services. We pay for things as they come up here, and this ties into state employment, local government employment, parish employment. If we want services, they cost something, and property taxes really are arguably one of the best and most progressive ways to pay for those things, because our homes, coupled with our homestead exemption, that everybody who owns something pays something. And if you rent, we discussed that, it is included in your cost of living by your what your rate of rental is. So, like I said, we're expecting a call, but I hate to call our organization a pro-tax organization, but we have to realize that if we want services, we do have to pay for them, and then you have to debate about how you're going to pay for them. They're not free.
They aren't free, and if we want certain things and we want a certain quality of life, then it's a put up or shut up kind of thing, really. And that's a direct way of putting it, Mike.
Yeah. So as far as the tax, do you know any of the groups that are endorsing the renewals?
Well, I think it's safe to say that people who represent these employees who are paid by these taxes would be endorsing these renewals, and that other than those, I'm not the kind of person who can call out those groups.
Well, I'm sure Kurt Monty with the firefighters and... Yeah,
that's what I said. Those of us who represent firefighters or police officers or people who work in mosquito and rodent control or animal control or those kinds of things, and I will say we represent some of these fire districts and not others, but we believe that citizens who want professional fire protection should be willing to pay the cost of that protection.
Okay. Well, like you said, we were expecting a call, but I guess, there's a lot going on right now in East Baton Rouge Parish with the Sheriff's Department, and
yeah, I know the Sheriff.
We'll just hang on. The Sheriff said Sid Gotro was scheduled to call in, but he's just lost a deputy.
Yeah. That's true.
And I mean, priorities are priorities.
I think that article mentioned that their chapel was going to be open around the clock for counseling of family members and friends. This was a very young deputy, Mike was talking about, that we lost in a traffic crash. I think he was 24 years old. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family and with the Sheriff's Department and their deputies. Our sheriff, our district attorney, and our police department are involved in a massive effort to reduce the crime rate. Brave is a part of that effort, and I believe that violent crime is down significantly this year, which is a testament to all of those agencies.
Well, the way I know violent crime is down as long as I don't get shot.
Well, this is true, Mike. But we aren't. It seems like at the beginning of some years we're having a shooting or two almost every week, and this year it's been a little bit quiet.
A little slow. I mean, I go back to the. Years ago they had a show, All in the Family, and I kind of found it humorous that the two characters were arguing about gun control, and one's a liberal, Archie's the conservative, and do you know how many people have been killed by handguns in this country, Archie? And he says, hey, meathead, would you rather they be thrown out a window? But you can't throw 10 people out a window at a time, like some of this stuff that's going on.
Wipe out that many with a weapon, you're right.
Anyway, like I said, we were expecting a call on the tax renewals, but we understand what's going on.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about that.
Go into
Maybe
that, Julie.
Sid will give us a call a little bit later. But the sheriff's...
we're supposed to have also, in the next hour, we're supposed to have Tom Aswell calling in.
Oh, awesome.
Tom's got a blog. He's an author, former employee, I think a former state employee.
I believe that's correct.
And author, Louisiana Rocks, and he's edited some books that are really good that I've read. And
the blog is Louisiana Voice, and it's excellent.
He's got some
his research is
sources
amazing.
And research is just you can't compare it to anything.
Yeah. And I would agree. And
in itself, the Louisiana
he
blog.
He is writing some things that we wish the mainstream media would pick up on because it's important news for the citizens of this state. Anyway, we have our law enforcement district tax that funds the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. It applies throughout East Baton Rouge Parish. It is 6.9 mils on the assessed value of a property after exemptions. It would be in effect from 2014 through 2023. If the house is valued at $275,000, the tax costs approximately $138 per year after the exemption. Now, my house isn't worth $275,000.
No?
No, it's not, and I think I have a very nice house. But so my protection from the sheriff's office, what I was getting to, is costing me less than $138 per year on the value on my house, because my house is worth a little less than that. And I certainly am willing to pay that for law enforcement protection, and I hope that many of you are too. What this tax would do is raise an estimated $24.69 million annually for the sheriff's office, which goes toward operations, salaries, and other programs. According to NOLA.com, what you should know is that the proposal is a renewal of an existing tax, not a new tax, a renewal, that makes up about 1/3 of the sheriff's office's general operating fund. 1/3. Imagine if that does not renew, that all of a sudden tomorrow you have to live on unemployment, which is about 2/3 of your salary, and it's capped. So it's 1/3. Sheriff Sid Gotro said calls to the sheriff's office have doubled over the past decade as the parish's population has expanded, but the sheriff's office has not increased costs for services. So what he is trying to say there is that they're managing their resources very well. What they're not asking for an increase. They're asking for a renewal of an existing tax. Now, that's not to say that this $24.69 million may be a little bit more than what they're taking in now, because we've had some new building in the parish. There's been some reassessments, and sometime it might be great to have Brian Wilson on here and explain the process of assessment and what that does for us and the laws the state has. Might want to know, you know.
I mean, I'm putting people to sleep by the dozens right now, and to go through all of that, Julie, I mean, I don't know.
Then let's focus back on, if this renewal doesn't pass, our sheriff is going to have to make do with 2/3 of what he's got
and then
now.
you got all the law and order group that wants everybody locked up.
The sheriff runs the parish jail.
Where do you
that
put
is the
them?
cost. That's right.
Where do you put them? I mean, how can you be anti-tax law enforcement and be anti-tax for it? I mean, you got to put these people somewhere.
Doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, again, it's back to, if you want a service, you have to pay for it. If you want to lock somebody up for any kind of offense, there has to be room in the parish prison. Believe it or not, there are federal mandates about crowding and overcrowding and what must be provided when we do lock people up. Then we're only allowed to hold them for a certain period of time before they are entitled to speedy resolution, trial, whatever you want to call that. So, remember, our sheriffs, it's not just the patrol cars on the streets. They run the parish prison. They serve warrants along with constables and city police. The mission of the sheriff's office is pretty broad. People may not know we have a number of law enforcement agencies operating within this parish, but the sheriff's one is basically over all of those, even over the state police. They are the primary law enforcement agency of the parish.
Sid's the only one that can arrest the governor, right? The high sheriff?
I don't know the answer to that question, Mike, but I think you must, since you posed the question.
Well, I mean, the capital city, the sheriff in the capital city, and
but we have state police here.
I think it goes back many years, but he's the high sheriff.
And I know
he's the high sheriff, and he could lock Jindal up.
Through some...
but I think they're the same political party. I don't know how that works.
I know. Through some interesting conversations at the Capitol this spring, too, I learned that sheriffs can actually issue concealed gun of interesting. I thought that was a completely a state
It's really
process.
hard to get a gun around here, you know,
Oh,
so
yeah,
I understand that. But anyway, we're coming up to the top of the hour, Julie, and this is WTQT 106.1 LPFM, and
it is also streamed online.
oh yes, and a very good stream.
And I was pleased to hear you talk about the HD availability in other parts of the state. I did not know that.
You know, sometimes I guess if we can convince him, I've seen him in the building, maybe we could get Dr. Ernest Johnson to go into how the other channels in the other cities work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have moved on. For Baton Rouge Labor Radio, this is the best move we've ever made. Nothing against the other channel, but we were broadcasting in the greater Baton Rouge area only, and now we have stepped out, and Dr. Ernest Johnson has put a bullwhip and a megaphone in my hands.
That's awesome. And for those who may not know who Dr. Ernest Johnson is, he is the state president of the NAACP. The NAACP and the AFL-CIO have long history together. The struggle for civil rights and economic opportunity really do go hand in hand.
Right.
And they are having a big celebration this week. Their annual state convention is going on, where our president, Louis Wren, was honored at a luncheon yesterday for his work to advance
He
economic...
needs another honor, right?
Well...
He needs another honor.
Louis has been honored many times. Mike is laughing about that, but he's worked hard for a long time.
He's not Victor Busey, okay? Give it to me.
Okay, well, Victor had a lot longer time in the trenches, okay?
We know Louis is listening.
Give Louis a few more years. But,
and this, let me go through this. Top of the hour. This is WTQT 106.1 LPFM, streaming on, as Julie said, Miss Julie Cherry, Secretary-Treasurer of the Louisiana AFL-CIO. WTQT was founded in 1996 by Dr. Ernest L. Johnson, President of the Louisiana NAACP. WTQT and its parent organization, the Louisiana Community Development Capital Fund, and that's CAP Fund, and they continue to help countless families to lead happier, more prosperous lives. And if you're interested in partnering with our station, opportunities are available. Contact our community coordinator by calling 225-343-1075, and we are on now Saturdays, 7 to 9 a.m. This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, Channel 31 in Freeport, Channel 45 in Alexandria, Channel 45 in Monroe, Channel 97.5 KTJZ in Tallulah. I think that's somewhere around Vicksburg, Mississippi, Tallulah.
It's up there.
I need a GPS and a bologna sandwich to find that place.
One of the poorest areas of the state, the northeast part of the state.
And the slogan here is nothing but the truth, and I think that's what we're doing. I think we're living up to those qualities of WTQT. So, it's top of the hour, Julie. We've got another hour to do here. We're looking forward. Hopefully, Tom Aswell will be calling in a few minutes, and we'll go directly to his phone call. But let's take a little break right now, and we're going to play a little music. Well?
Maybe.
There we go.
Across the USA, these multinational bastards don't use tanks and guns, it's true. They've declared a war on us, my jacket's up to you. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time we started calling the shots. to work. Could be the death of you and me, but we're not unarmed. Our weapons of solidarity. Jim Beals and Karen Silkwood, the list goes on and on. With every year that passes, 60,000 more gone. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time we started calling the shots. When they boost your copay, war on the workers. Don't you know what to say? War on the workers. When they talk privatization, war on the workers. And cooperation, war on the workers. When they call you a team, war on the workers. You better learn how to scream. War on the workers. Oh, that's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time we started calling the shots. They can lock us out, they can lock us up. We cannot give in. No more lies, no compromise. We'll battle till we win. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time we started calling the shots. When they talk flexibility, war on the workers. Every working stiff can see. War on the workers. Now when they poison your water, war on the workers. Don't go like lambs to the slaughter. War on the workers. And when they foul up the air, war on the workers. You gotta show that you care. War on the workers. When they talk WTO, war on the workers. You best be screaming hell no. War on the workers. Oh, that's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. It's a war on public education. It's a war on child labor protection. It's a war on the 8-hour day. It's a war on occupational health and safety. It's a war on Social Security. Now thanks to WTO, GATT, NAFTA, MAI, the IMF, and the World Bank, it's a worldwide war. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Yeah, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time, sisters and brothers, you know it's time right now. I said it's time we started calling the shots.
War on the Workers by Miss Ann Feeney. This is WTQT 106.1 LPFM. This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio. And Julie, you said you had something on the, I'm sitting with Julie Cherry, Secretary Treasurer of the Louisiana AFL-CIO, and I haven't mentioned, but Neil Paul Miller and our fact checker, Karen Miller, are probably headed toward the boat or on the boat or something. They're off today, and we hope they enjoy their day, you know.
Certainly do.
A well-deserved day. So anyway, Julie, you got a story on the state workers' raises, or?
Well, another story in today's Advocate on the front page is that pay raises are on the way for state employees at LSU's Baton Rouge campus, but thousands of others who work for major state agencies won't get them. In fact, there was a meeting yesterday. There are a number of departments where that are proposing pay raises for their employees, and they are merit raises, so they do have to have more than satisfactory job performance ratings. It has been a struggle to get state workers regular pay raises, Mike, and certainly that workers who provide services to us every day that we take for granted deserve these raises. But the articles, some of them are questioning why is it that some departments can do it and some cannot. And we have some crazy ways of funding in this state where some departments are self-funded and some, because they generate their own funds, they have a little bit more control over what their budgets are, and some of them are completely funded from outside, from state government appropriations. So it's interesting to see this, and we're an organization that would advocate to be able to do this, but you always have to look at how are pay raises being funded, unfortunately? Is it another question of the haves and the have-nots? Is it because we have actually sent some people home and they're now unemployed that we can reward those that we kept? And, you know, for the agency heads, I have to say it's going to be a delicate balancing act all the time. You want your department to run efficiently, but you want to be able to retain people, too. You want to be able to not just promise them something year after year. I'm not talking about day after day. I'm talking year about year, year after year. You have to be able to deliver once in a while. So it was kind of interesting because I saw something on Facebook this morning. One of our state reps out of the North Shore area, John Schroeder, who's a conservative representative from that area, as you might expect, questioning not the pay raises, but how they're being given in light of the fact that our governor just cut over $4 million for the developmentally disabled. And if we can fund millions of dollars of pay raises, why can we not provide those services for some of the most vulnerable of our citizens? And those are the kinds of questions that we have to struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, I mean, one of the things, in my opinion, this is Julie Cherry speaking, if government cannot take care of the most vulnerable of our citizens, what else are they good for? What else are they good for?
I agree.
You know, so we're talking about people who need some aids to be able to go to work and still take care of their families. They want to be productive citizens in the workforce, but they may need help at home that they can't get without these disability services.
So what do you do with it? I guess it's just a dilemma. You cut these disabled people out of money, and now you're talking about giving someone a raise that's going to work every day, doing their job.
Right, and it's coming from the same pot somehow.
Right.
You know, I mean, our government has a limited amount of money to spend.
And, you just don't, what do you do?
Those are the questions that our legislators have to struggle with when they come into session, and they thought they had solved a lot of that and provided that extra money this year, and then, you know, with the stroke of a pen, basically, Jindal cut out almost $50 million, and about $4 to $5 million of that was for these disabled citizens of ours. And really, in my opinion, again, I'll be careful to state that, without good reason for it. If the money was there, because the legislators did have to submit a balanced budget by the end of the session, what was he saving that $50 million for? What is it getting for us now? You know, and do we hear anything out of the administration telling us anything about that? Well,
you don't hear much from them except defending whatever they're doing.
And no, that's not a public record. Because of the deliberative process or whatever. No, I don't have to turn that over.
Sued by LSU, and it's not looking good on that form.
Being sued by the company that was supposed to provide the claims processing for the Medicaid. Being sued by this one and that one and the other one. Being sued by a couple of organizations that represent employees because, at his urging, some legislation was passed illegally, not according to process. And so far, the governor's losing those cases. And at every turn, someone testified in a public hearing that what was going on was wrong. So nobody can say that they didn't know. No one can say that they weren't informed. No one can say that either the law, the statute, or the Constitution wasn't cited. And it is a matter of public record that some folks who we elect and who represented us stood up there and said, wait, we can't do this. And at the urging of others in the administration and in the Capitol, these laws were passed anyway. And I would be talking about the pension reforms. I would be talking about some of the so-called ed reforms. At every turn, there was someone who stood up and said, according to the Constitution, we can't do this, and what do you know, the Supreme Court has upheld that. So it has been very, very interesting. In no way do I want to take anything away from state agency heads who are trying to reward employees, because that is important. But we do have to think about how our raise is being paid for and what are we losing in the meantime. So for those employees, I am happy. You are deserving. You have been waiting too long for the recognition. But for all of the citizenry, I'd say we have to stay a little bit more informed on the process. And it looks like we're getting a call.
Yeah, Julie, we're getting a call, and I'd like to introduce our caller. He's Mr. Tom Aswell. He's a noted author, Louisiana Rocks. He's edited other books that I've read that are really good. The one that comes to mind, When Edwards Was in the Governor's Mansion. Really good book if you haven't read it, Julie. He has a blog, Louisiana Voice, and politics is at its worst. And I don't know who his sources are, and he's not going to tell me, but they're deep. They run deep in this state. He's a former employee of The Advocate, journalist, award-winning journalist, and also a state worker. I think we'll let him tell us. But good morning, Mr. Aswell.
Good morning.
Whoops. We may need some help with this.
She showed Neil when I was here a couple weeks ago,
Well,
but I don't remember. Do you have a speaker?
Get him. Oh, wait. Okay. I don't know. Go. We're having a little problem here. Hello? Yeah, I got the button on the left. We're having a problem with the phone system here. I don't know. Okay. Now we got it. We're having a problem with the phone system here. We're trying to get Mr. Tom Aswell on. Okay. We're going to go to a song and try to figure this out.
These multinational bastards don't use tanks and guns, it's true. But they've declared a war on us. My back, it's up to you. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time we started calling the shots. Going to work could be the death of you and me, but we're not unarmed. Our weapons of solidarity. Jim Beals and Karen Silkwood, the list goes on and on. With every year that passes, 60,000 more gone. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time we started calling the shots.
Let me call Tom.
When they boost your copay. War on the workers. Don't you know what to say? War on the workers. When they talk privatization. War on the workers. And cooperation. War on the workers. When they call you a team. War on the workers. You better learn how to scream. War on the workers. Oh, that's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers. War on the workers. Oh, it's a war
up in the
When they talk flexibility,
try to get
every worker stiff and free. Now when they poison your water, don't go like lambs to the slaughter.
the station manager.
When they foul up the air,
But all right,
got to show care. When they talk WTO, you best be screaming hell no. Oh, that's a war on the workers. Oh, it's a war on the workers.
Okay, I'm not seeing it. Go in there and see
It's a
it.
war on public education. It's a war on child labor protection. It's a war on the 8-hour day. It's a war
Hello?
on occupational health and safety. It's a war on Social Security. Now, thanks to WTO,
Hello?
GATT, NAFTA, MAI, the IMF, and the World Bank,
I can't
it's a
believe it.
worldwide war. Oh, it's
Okay.
a war on the workers. Yeah, it's a war
I can't get it. It's not
working.
working.
Oh, it's a war on the workers. And it's time, sisters and brothers, you know it's time right now. I said it's time we started calling the shots.
Get it, Julie? Okay, let's see what we can do. Good. Okay, this is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, and we're trying to get Mr. Tom Aswell on the phone here, and I'm having a little problem with this deal here. So, line 4, 2, 3, 4. Good morning. Hello?
See, I don't see anything.
Okay. Phone mic 2. The phone mic is on.
Let me see if it's still.
You know. Hello, good morning. I can't believe I'm doing that.
It's the third WTQT.
Right, and it's not coming on. Well, I'm at a loss here, Mr. Aswell. Julie,
Yeah.
apologize to Mr. Aswell. That's it. I mean, I went through everything here. It's not working for us. We're not getting the lights on the phone. We're having technical problems. And I don't know how to get around this. This is the second time, Mr. Aswell. It's not working. It's not working. I'm at a loss here. Got it. Cut it off? Okay, it's off. Look, we're trying to feel our way through this, ladies and gentlemen. This is WTQT 106.1 FM, LPFM. This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, and we've got a real interesting caller. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, good morning.
Hello?
Hello, is this Mr. Tom Aswell?
No, this is Terrell Griffin. How you doing this morning?
Hey, if you could, hold on, caller. Mr. Tom Aswell?
No, this is still Terrell Griffin. I just was checking to see what your frequency was.
Go ahead, caller.
I did know the guy that was in the fire. Stan was his nickname that we called him.
Okay.
Was on his knees praying, and I just stepped out earlier this morning and somebody was telling me who he was. He was a good brother, good heart.
Okay, is it on the
If he had anything to help you or give you his time, he would. He was saved, he believed in the Lord, and I could speak for him myself. Some people know me as the Candy Man. he know me, a good brother, so.
The Candy Man. That's the world's finest Candy Man?
No, the fair candy, man. I sell the candy apples, popcorn balls, peanuts, pecan candy, tea cakes, pork skin, all that stuff. Sweet potato pies and pecan pies.
Okay, well, we appreciate your call in remembrance of Stan Wilson. And, you know, it's really it's a horror story any way you look at it, you know. He was such a good man. But do you have any more remembrances of Stan?
Oh, man. He liked to ride the bike. He was a band guy. He was in, I forgot the name of the band he was in his college years. And he was in the band. He just loved it, music, too. He was a good brother, man. He loved the kids. Words can't describe him unless you meet him for yourself.
I know there will be a lot of people with a great sense of loss.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, caller, we appreciate your call, and you know, our hearts and condolences goes out to Stan Wilson's family and friends. Thank you for calling.
Okay, thank you, man.
Now we're going to try to get Mr. Tom Aswell to call back. This is completely my fault, Julie. I should know this by now. A
lot of people don't know. We changed a few weeks ago, and it's a new board.
This is completely my fault, and I don't know what else to say. You know, so.
But the station manager called in and helped us straighten that out, and she said, "Keep your hand off that button, Mike."
Okay, well, I didn't know.
Mike has been doing a great job for a long time for Baton Rouge Labor Radio, and
what do you do?
Sometimes it's hard to change.
It's you know, it's a new system, but still, it's completely my fault. And if we can get Mr. Aswell to call back in, we'll be very fortunate.
And I know he had some awesome information for us, because he is the one more than anybody I can think of, though we have a lot of competent journalists, but he really stays on top of
I've got his blog up, and like I said, he's got something right up your alley, Julie. The state-approved Christian schools have much in common with a couple of these fundamentalist Christian homes, and he goes into the New Bethany. And, you know, my apologies to Mr. Aswell. It's my fault. What can I say? Yeah, maybe that's him. Let's see. Good morning. I lost him again. Mr. Aswell, try again, please. I hit the wrong button again. What can I say?
Some days are just, you're having your Monday today, Mike.
I don't know what's going on. I wouldn't, you know.
Well, I started to say, Mike's been holding this down, Mike and Neil, more than anybody else for a long time now, and so from the Labor family, we thank you.
Too well, but anyway, if we could, we've got another 30 minutes, and I would really, however I get him on the air, he's been hanging with us here, and hopefully I'll get these buttons right that I got to press. But anyway, his blog is it's second to none. It's second to none. And he had a conversation that he wanted to talk about, and I'm thinking all I got to do is hit this button right here, Julie.
What is that, a ring?
Well, the speaker. You know, I thought I had the board down. Apparently not.
I think you just need to press the line and that phone stays on speaker.
I hit the button line and it went off.
Oh.
You know, but I don't know. Anyway, we've got 30 minutes. We'll slog through this. And
so did you hit speaker also?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, apparently I need to go back for retraining or either be fired.
We thank the station manager for calling in, for trying to help us too.
But you know, I've got a problem with this phone, and I should have had that settled, but I did. I apologize.
We just need another spate of callers to help us out.
I apologize to Mr. Tom Aswell. Hello.
We just need to get a few more callers so we can give Mike a little practice, so we can. The amateurs and the pros, are beating us down badly, but we're gonna. Mr. Aswell, I think, is going to try again.
Well, it's amateur hour. Okay, here we go. Speaker. Hello.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Aswell.
That doesn't sound like Mr. Aswell.
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Aswell.
Hello, Mr. Aswell.
Hello?
Is this Mr. Aswell?
No, sir.
Hold on. Mr. Aswell.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man. I finally got him. Are we on, Julie?
Okay.
This is Mr. Tom Aswell, noted author of Louisiana Rocks, editor of When Edwards Was in the Governor's Mansion, and the aforementioned Louisiana Voice blog. And
we want to thank him for his persistence this morning.
The man has done everything he could do to get in here. Through my incompetence and ignorance, he finally made it, I guess. But good morning, Mr. Aswell. What's on your mind? What would you like to talk about? The floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, Mike?
I'm sitting in with Julie Cherry, Secretary-Treasurer of the Louisiana AFL-CIO. Neil Paul Miller is off today.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we finally connected here.
My fault completely, Mr. Aswell. Thank you for your persistence.
No problem. I think probably the thing I'd like to talk about today is the Recovery School District, charters and vouchers as promoted by our esteemed governor, which I feel, well, they have been ruled unconstitutional, the method of paying for them, and but there's a much deeper story with Bessie and the Recovery School District, and I'd like to just discuss that in some detail this morning.
That's great, Tom. I think that's such an important area for people to be informed on because, you know, let's face it, on paper, vouchers look like a good deal, don't they?
It can be, and charters can be good, but I don't think they're end-all, do-all. I don't think they're a panacea to what, the problems in public education. I think we should be investing more money in public education and trying to improve the weaknesses and strengthen the weaknesses as opposed to just throwing the baby out with the dishwater, as our parents would have said.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that.
This is where we are being extremely short-sighted in our official policy regarding education with this administration.
Well, you know, considering some of those little small groups that want to run these vouchers and stuff, would you explain why you think that's short-sighted?
Because of the schools that they are approving with very little vetting, and to me, this is a real problem. We're allowing a lot of these, and I tread carefully here because nobody likes to criticize the church, but many of these church-affiliated schools, particularly the Protestant, the fundamentalist schools that are being approved for vouchers. Charter schools are very questionable in their techniques and their curriculum. For example, we have several, and when I say several, I'm talking about at least a couple of a dozen that have been approved that teach such things as that man coexisted with dinosaurs, that the Earth is only 10,000 years old,
that the KKK was a benevolent society that was attempting social reform.
The
You're
KKK?
kidding on that. You're kidding on that, right?
No, not at all. I'm not kidding at all. This is the Bob Jones University Press that teaches that, and I purchased a couple of Bob Jones University textbooks when they had a kind of a market or whatever you want to call it. They had a room set up in a hotel in Baton Rouge, and I went to it and purchased a couple of books just so I could research it for myself.
Bob Jones University is...
This is what they teach, the Accelerated Christian Education course, Bob Jones University, and a press called ABECA.
And we have real schools teaching this stuff.
I'm sorry?
And we have real schools, I'll use that in quotes, teaching this stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. They also teaching that the Trail of Tears, if you're familiar with the Trail of Tears, that's when they moved the American Indians from southeastern United States to the reservations in the Midwest. And so many thousands of them died on that journey. And they are teaching that the Trail of Tears actually led many American Indians to Christ. That's pure fiction.
Now, we're speaking with Mr. Tom Aswell of LouisianaVoice.com. And, Mr. Aswell, are you telling, I just want to be clear, are you telling us there are schools in Louisiana that are teaching the subjects that you just brought up, the Ku Klux Klan, the Trail of Tears?
All you have to do is you look at the list of schools that are approved by the Department of Education, and then you go to those schools' websites, and they have it out there, what they teach.
So any citizen can find that information out if they'll just take the time to do it.
That's right. It just takes a little research, a little time, a little patience.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to my earlier comment. On paper, vouchers and charters look like a good thing. If you think we have such a large percentage of schools that are failing, then why not send these kids to some better school? But that begs the question, how do we show that they're better? What kind of hoops do they have to jump through? And more importantly, how can we compare what they're getting now to what's being offered with these vouchers?
That's a good question, because you can't.
Say that one more time.
Standards of the public education. They don't even have to have certified teachers. And when you don't hold them to the same standards, how can you're comparing apples with oranges from the get-go?
Yeah. And
this is a major problem that I have with vouchers and charter schools. And as I said, I don't. And you said it too, that they can be a good thing. But you take a school like the Delhi Charter School, a 17-year-old female became pregnant by one of the football players at that school. And this is these fundamentalists teach that women are inferior to men. Period. I mean that's unqualified statement.
So a student gets pregnant by another student, not terribly uncommon. It happens, right?
She became pregnant by the football player, and she was given the choice of taking her courses at home or dropping out of the school. That was her choices, and they encouraged her to drop out of the school. And the football player received absolutely no disciplinary action whatever, because he's a male and she's a female.
Therefore, it was her fault, right?
Further instituted a policy that was it existed only a short while because of the ACLU and public outcry. They instituted a policy where female students could be required to take a pregnancy test, just on a whim. And this is a charter school that's approved by the state of Louisiana. That's in Bellhouse, in Richland Parish, the stomping ground of State Senator Francis Thompson.
And because it is a private school, you really couldn't argue. Well, legally, they could probably institute that policy. I say females have to have a pregnancy test, and if I'm a parent and I want my kid to go there, I got to submit to that. But
that's correct.
Yeah.
But that the ACLU threatened to sue them, so they rescinded that policy, but only under extreme pressure.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. So women are inferior and everything is their fault.
Absolutely.
At that particular place.
And there was another school of thought in these fundamentalist schools And I hate to pick on the fundamentalist school, but I've been writing about it a lot lately with this new Bethany Home for Girls up in Arcadia, now defunct. But two of the board members of that school included the son-in-law of the minister who ran it and his son. So the son-in-law and grandson of the minister who ran the school. And these girls, by the way, there are charges out there right now that some of these girls were raped and all of them were beaten. And several of them are claiming, saying now that they were raped while they were there by Reverend Ford. And his son-in-law and grandson now work in the campaign of Neil Reiser, who's running for Congress. And of course, Neil Reiser is Bobby Jindal's candidate.
Right.
And why did Neil Reiser allow these men to work in his campaign? That's the question that I feel needs to be asked.
And even if he didn't know, since it's come out, yeah.
And by the way, the grandson, Jonathan Johnson, worked 10 years for Rodney Alexander, and only recently took unpaid leave to work for Neil Reiser. He's worked for Rodney Alexander since 2003.
And let's make sure we say that these are allegations at this point.
No, they're not allegations. They did, in fact, serve on the board. I have copies of the board minutes, and now the beatings and rapes are allegations, yes.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure that we're not putting something out there.
And I interviewed a sheriff, the sheriff of Bienville Parish this week, who was a former state trooper, and he told me some of the things he witnessed when he was a state trooper in Bienville Parish relative to that school. So,
certainly some of the community must have been aware of what was going on.
They were. I talked to a few residents up there, and they have a pretty low opinion of Reverend Ford. But this is what they teach, in these schools. They begun by Lester Roloff down in Corpus Christi, Texas, back in the 70s. And Lester Roloff spawned a whole new underground, I guess you'd call it, of these schools. And a lot of them still exist. You still have these schools all over the country where these children are beaten with PVC pipe and boards and belts. And they're chained to their beds. And in one case, in South Carolina, authorities raided the school. They found a young boy in solitary confinement in a very small room with only a coffee can to use the restroom in.
Mm-hmm. And that was South Carolina, not here. Now, certainly all of our schools that are accepting vouchers aren't like that.
The school in South Carolina was run by the same minister that ran the school in Arcadia, by the way. And no, not all the schools are like that. But they are based on this fundamentalist philosophy that teaches that very thing. And they teach, that basically women are inferior to men. And they must be submissive to the male. And that's why the men go without punishment when the girl becomes pregnant.
I went to Catholic schools, Tom, and I taught in public schools, and all my kids went to public schools. But I went to Catholic schools 1st through 12th grade, and I was never taught anything like that. Ever.
No, and you won't be. And your Episcopal and your Presbyterian and your traditional Southern Baptist schools don't teach that either. I'm talking about your fundamentalist teachings that teach literally from the Old Testament.
And there are some of those schools where, the Catholic and Episcopalian and so that have taken some very, very small numbers of vouchers. Mostly they just don't have room. And their tuitions are too high for the vouchers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And moving into another area, I said I'd like to talk about the Recovery School District. The Recovery School District is supposed to be, it's all over the state, but it's concentrated primarily in New Orleans. And following Hurricane Katrina, and I toured the Recovery School District back in July. Along with a former teacher there who's now in Jefferson Parish because he was fired from the Recovery School District because he refused to allow his students to cheat on the standardized testing. He refused to do it, and his contract was not renewed. So now he's in Jefferson Parish. I have the money that's budgeted to rebuild these schools down there that were damaged and destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. And one I'm going to cite to you, George Washington Carver High School, which is a high school that Marshall Faulk graduated from and played with the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm.
they were earmarked to receive $39.6 million, almost $40 million to rebuild that school. And it's now 8 years post-Katrina, and right now that school consists entirely of T buildings. They haven't laid the first brick. And they can't cite state budgetary constraints on this because this money that was allocated for them is FEMA money. It's not even state money, it's federal money.
Where is that money, Tom?
Pardon?
Where is that money now? Where is that $40 million?
Well, you'd have to ask Mr. John White and Chaz Romer of the Bessie Board to find that out because they're the ones that controlling the purse strings.
So it's FEMA money that was
for this construction, but they haven't laid the first brick. That school is all T buildings, and this is a public high school that does not even have a library. No library.
Wow.
And
here we are 8 years later.
Bessie awarded Holy Cross High School, which is a private Catholic school, $4.1 million. Now, this is a private school, and they gave them $4.1 million toward repairing their school. But this other school, George Washington Carver High School, 8 years post-Katrina, the students are still attending class in T buildings. And to me, that's a crime. That's criminal.
It definitely sounds like haves and have-nots. The haves will get more and the have-nots will get less.
Well, I asked the teachers, because he said Coach Frank, and he has a radio show in New Orleans, I had it this afternoon. Coach Frank's the one put me on a tour. And I asked him if there were any black students in Holy Cross. He said, well, those that can bounce a basketball and throw a football. He said, they do let those in. And so the athletes are given scholarships to Holy Cross. Apparently, but George Washington Carver is 100% black. It's in the ninth ward. The students came from the Desire Housing, the former Desire Housing project up there, Marshall Park, lived, and he went to school there. And I told Coach Frank, the teacher who took me on the tour, I said, well, I can see the problem. And he said, what? I said, you're the wrong color. And that is the problem.
Well, you know, there's long been a theory that, and, you know, I'm calling it a theory, that certain people were not wanted back in New Orleans.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And this is, in fact, former Congressman Richard Baker was quoted as saying what God couldn't do, what the state couldn't do, God did, with referencing Katrina driving out so many black people from New Orleans. And that was a former congressman from the state of Louisiana, Richard Baker.
I think it's more than that. I don't think it's just black people. I think it's poor people. Anybody that might have been considered to be, is it fair to say not contributing? I don't know if that's the right term.
Jindal is whining and crying right now about this federal lawsuit, saying that it's preventing poor Louisiana students from receiving a quality education, and he's lamenting the fact that the government is taking over Louisiana schools. Well, Mr. Jindal should look in the mirror and ask that same question about the state government of Louisiana taking over the schools.
Without a thought for the 98% or whatever that vouchers leave behind.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
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 Yeah, it's, you know, you have to think about why shouldn't these kids get a chance? Well, number one, there's the apples to oranges businesses. We have no way of comparing those schools to the public schools they're coming out of. Number two,
the lack of accountability, yes.
Number two, it leaves behind way, almost 100 times more than it takes out. And number three, under-resourced schools get even further under-resourced when those dollars go with those kids. And the most vulnerable kids are left behind with fewer resources.
Well, if you look at the enrollments of some of these charter schools, a large percentage of these charter schools and voucher schools have no facilities for special needs students. So they're eliminated immediately.
Right.
And they go back to the underperforming public schools. And it's a cycle of failure that the state of Louisiana is creating for low-income students. And I'm like you. I'm not going to restrict it to blacks. I'm going to say low-income.
Yeah.
And this is what they're doing. And it's the philosophy and the game plan of the Republican Party and an outfit called the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. That's their agenda.
Well, that's another whole can of worms, because ALEC, the components of ALEC and the people who fund that are definitely out for something that is less than good.
That's for another show, another day.
Right. But, I feel so much for these parents of these students who, it gets spread out there that these schools are underperforming, and I would question a lot of that, because the schools do take everyone and they do the best job they can with the resources they have, and I'm going to stick with that. But these parents, so many of them are sold this bill of goods, and they really believe that this is their shot. And you think if we say enough times, if there's more Tom Aswells and Julie Cherries and Mike Days and Steve Monahans who keep saying, look, you're not comparing the same thing, do you think that we can get that message out there?
As long as you have people like Bobby Jindal and John White and Chaz Romer in power, nothing's going to change. I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just the way I feel. As long as those type of people are in charge, you're going to have this elitist government that caters only to the rich and to the campaign contributors.
Part and parcel, divides it up out to the bidders and enriches their friends and leaves people struggling to climb out of the trenches.
Well, you're correct, and it was Rupert Murdoch, our friend at News Corps and the president of Fox News, who said that education is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and he saw that, and that's what they're trying to do. All these people are trying to make money off education. They're trying to capitalize it, privatize it, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this same effort move into the higher education colleges. That is, take state out of state colleges and privatize them. That's going to cause tuition to increase by at least 3 times. And when that happens, the student's going to have to borrow more money from these lenders who make guaranteed loans. The loans are guaranteed by the government. So it's a win-win for them, and they get to make these huge loans to these students whether they default or not.
That old adage, follow the money, comes back into play.
Exactly. Follow the money. First time I heard that was reading All the President's Men, the story of Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein in the Nixon Watergate scandal, when Deep Throat told Bob Woodward to follow the money. And that's my mantra. Anytime that I suspect any politician doing anything wrong, I go straight to his campaign finances and look and see who's giving him the money.
Well, because it's there. They have to report it, and you can see it. All you got to do is go look for it.
That's right. That's correct. It's very easy to track. It's all there.
And the same folks that are screaming.
I'm on my computer all day long, 7 days a week, checking campaign contributions, checking web pages, and all these charter schools that I was talking about a while ago. I went to every one of them's web page and looked at their curriculum, and it's a long process. It takes a long time to do it.
Right.
But if you're going to do any kind of job at all of reporting, that's what you have to do. And that's where I feel like the media has really let us down. They're basically lazy. And I hate to see that, because I've spent 25 years as a news reporter for newspapers. And I felt like my first duty was to my readers, not to my editor, not to any advertisers. And to the readers. And now I see that trend reversed with the consolidation of newspapers and I'm going to call it the death of the Times-Picayune, going to 3 days a week. You know, who's holding these people accountable? It's the bloggers now. That's the only one holding them accountable.
Yeah, news media organizations are big corporate entities.
And the bloggers are really taking a hard rap from the traditional sources of news. Am I right, Mr. Aswell?
Well, certainly, because they feel threatened. Bob Mann, who worked for Senators John Blow and Russell Long and Senator Johnson, and he worked for Kathleen Blanco. He's now head of the Manchester School of Communications out of LSU, and he has a blog called Something Like the Truth. His blog and my blog were chosen by the Washington Post this year as the 2 of the 100 top political blogs in the nation. And because he and I don't accept what we hear from the politicians, I tell students, whenever I talk to journalism students, I said, always ask one more question. Just like Peter Falk in Columbo, one more question, because you never know when you're going to get the right answer. And you do not listen to what politicians say. You listen to what they don't say. For example, when I interviewed Jonathan Johnson, who is on the campaign of Neil Rogers' campaign, and who was on the board of directors of New Bethany School up in Arcadia. When I interviewed him last Tuesday, I asked him, don't you feel like Neil Rogers is stigmatized by the fact that the two of you worked in his campaign, considering all these stories about these beatings and these rapes at that school? And he never denied that they took place. Instead, he said, I was 12 years old when that happened. He never said it didn't happen. He said, I was 12 years old when it happened. And so, I mean, that was an admission to me that it did in fact occur.
But it was okay because he was only 12 years old.
He wasn't responsible.
Well, he was on the board of directors when he was in his early 20s. He can't gloss that over quite as easily.
Right.
So, Mr. Aswell, and we are speaking with Mr. Tom Aswell, LouisianaVoice.org, right?
No, LouisianaVoice.com.
.com.
Yeah.
And anyway, we've got about 3 minutes before we've got to go. Well, what do you have? What do you have in the works? What's cooking?
Well, I have more stories about the New Bethany School, of course, and I'm watching very closely this the privatization of the state hospitals, which to me is another travesty perpetrated on the low-income people of this state who rely on the welfare or the charity hospitals for health care, and they're taking that away from them, and that's another a big, and that's being done obviously to help certain contributors to Jindal's campaign. And I think it's very interesting that the chairman and president, the CEO and president of the foundation that's taken over the LSU Medical Center in Shreveport and EA Conway in Monroe, their CEO and chairman is on the LSU Board of Supervisors, which approved the transaction, which approved the privatization to the Biomedical Research Foundation in Northwest Louisiana. So that's a conflict of interest, pure and simple. Jindal said it's not, so I guess it's not. But he said it's not a conflict. I say it is. You cannot serve on a board that approves the sale of an entity to your business.
Tom, who would have to make that charge, and where would it have to go?
I'm sorry?
Who would have to make that charge, and where would it have to go?
Oh, I brought that up in my blog on several occasions. But irony of ironies, you cannot ask for a ruling by the Ethics Commission on whether or not that's a violation of the whether or not that's a conflict of interest. I found that out the hard way. I have no standing to make a request to determine if someone's in violation of conflict of interest.
You would have to be one of the parties, and of course they made the agreement, so they're not interested in that ruling.
Precisely, exactly. Correct.
Okay, we've got about a minute and a half to go before we got to go, Mr. Aswell. We're speaking with Tom Aswell of LouisianaVoice.com, and anyone that's interested in what's going on with state government or the school districts and the privatization and the vouchers and stuff like that would be well served by going to LouisianaVoice.com. There's a lot of information there. I've got it on my Facebook, and I go to it a lot, and it's detailed, it's informative. You're not going to find anything. And what'd you say, Tom? It was voted one of the top 100 blogs in the country.
That's correct.
And
one of the top 100 political blogs in the country.
Yeah.
the Washington Post.
And there's no doubt that it's excellent work and time-consuming by Mr. Aswell. Mr. Aswell, I want to thank you. I hope you overlook my incompetence on the phone system.
Give us
here.
another chance.
And Matt, look, I welcome you back any time.
I'm a technological dinosaur myself, so I understand.
And Dr. Ernest Johnson has us on all over the state now: Monroe, Alexandria, Shreveport, Tallulah, wherever that is. But
well, my career's taken off if I'm in Tallulah.
You really give us a lot of information, and we got to wrap up the show right now. And we thank you, Mr. Tom Aswell.
Glad to do it. Thank you.
We will be giving you a call. We hope you come back.
Okay, I will.
Thank you, Mr. Aswell. And this is Mike Day with Julie Cherry, Secretary-Treasurer of the Louisiana AFL-CIO, Neil Paul Miller, and our fact-checker, Karen Miller, are off somewhere, headed to the boat. I hope they're having a good time. And,
Mike, we had a couple other callers who...
we did.
Just as we figured out the phone system, so we hope they'll call back next week.
We were doing something on Stan Wilson, and we will continue to do that in the first hour of our next show. He was a hero. We got to go, Julie. If you work for free, you'll always have a job. This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, WTQT 106.1 LP FM. Have a good weekend.